career in GE, you must go through internal audit. Everybody that will make it in GE must go through internal audit. So you start off in internal audit, which is like an internal consulting firm, and you travel around the world, all the different operations of GE, you have to beat all of them. It's only when you have done that and, after a few more years, you are now posted to another job. Your career now starts. So internal audit function should actually house some of the best brains in the bank. It should. Today, when we recruit fresh graduates, we first pump them to treasury, to finance, and to some key risk functions. And if there's anybody left, we send them to other places. Those things need to change. The way we used to behave in the past must change. Well, some of us are about to retire, but I mean, for those of you who still have so many more years to stay, just note that we need to change the way we look at resourcing, because the technology and the business space is evolving very rapidly, and we need to catch up, which is very much the essence of the message that I've brought to you, the keynote address I've brought to you this morning. And that change must start from the board level. We as board members must all collectively, not individually or selectively, collectively understand the changes that are occurring and the need for internal audit who reports to us to be adequately resourced to be able to provide that assurance. If it is not, we'll get lemons by way of reports. So my response, well, I know I've gone a roundabout way, but to come home with my response to your question is that we need to start with engineering some board presentations, if you like. Go to the big four firms, talk to them, and have a bespoke presentation around internal audit function of the future or something, and embed the important messages that you want communicated to the board. You don't want to be the one delivering the message, because you probably won't get listened to. But let's KPMG prepare something, or PwC or somebody prepare something around these topics and the important messages around the kind of resourcing and all the things that you guys are going to agree at the end of this meeting. Let it be embedded in that presentation and ensure it is made to the board, because that's where the job needs to be done. Once that vision is caught at that level, resourcing internal audit should not be a problem. If you note, I think I'm going to leave a copy of this keynote address. I did say that for boards and executive management, the message is simple. Internal audit must be empowered, properly resourced, and respected. I'll drop a copy of this keynote address. That needs to be the case. Thank you. Internal audit, so the second question I think is similar. Where did I write it? Internal audit is the driver, provision of resources. I think my first response basically addresses that as well. The third question was executives. Yeah. Okay. So this is about executives. It also speaks to the same thing in a way. Executives, really appreciating the role. I know that if things are going right, so internal audit is in a fairly, you guys are in a fairly, you're in a fairly unique position in that you're not higher than the CEO, but really, you don't report to executive management. Really. Many organizations may have created an environment that makes that reporting, those independent issues to be blurred. But the reality is that you don't. So there will be natural form of tensions once in a while, and it's up to you to try to manage that as well. But the fact is that, you said take the message to the body of CEOs. I'll convey that to my CEO that it's important that the body of internal auditors wants you guys to be more understanding of their roles, be more cooperative, etc. But bottom line is that there will always be tensions. There will always be tensions, but it's just tensions should be positive. And you have to also apply a lot of emotional intelligence in your job, knowing the vantage position you are at. You're not senior to the CEO, but in the real sense, the CEO should not be able to fire you. The CEO should not be able to do so many things to you, because the board is really where your reports go to. You need that level of independence to be able to write a report. If the CEO has done something, you should be able to write a report that indicts the CEO if you need to. So that's why you have to be that strengthened. And so for me, you can still expect some level of, because of that factor, you can expect some level of tensions. But I think called internal control. It's really a Nigerian thing. Internal control are basically a set of systems and processes and stuff like that we put together to ensure that this works, everything works, and everything is okay. There are some people we give some responsibilities to ensure, to drive those controls, monitor those controls, test today under ICFR and other things, and sustainability testing to test that those controls are working well and make sure that, control gaps, design. So I always tell our internal control people who report to me, your primary job is not all this policeman work. It is to design controls, because there's nobody else in the bank whose job it is to design controls. Operational risk will identify through different things, different tools and frameworks that they have, RCSA, incident reports, fraud examinations, etc. Your job is to design controls to mitigate those gaps. Your job is to identify controls that are not working effectively or that have failed and resulted in certain things. Find out what failed. If there's a control, fine, but why did it fail? Plug it, rejig the control, redesign the control, make sure it doesn't fail under any circumstance. That's the job of internal control. Internal control is part of doing in a way in that sense. However, internal audit is different. Internal audit is typically providing assurance, overlooking things, and basically reviewing and reporting. And we're saying that role is being enhanced as we begin to adopt AI even into internal audit work, because as you find things, as you find things and use models that says, oh, this has happened, you've identified them, you include them in your report. You also have models that are saying, if this is happening predictively, we might have, so your reports can include, oh, we have found this, but predictive analysis also tells us that if this trend continues, it can worsen to this level. And that's where we're talking about internal audits looking into the future. But your job is certainly not to participate in any way around around designing controls, around all of this. You can't be part of that. You're just totally different. And your job is review, almost is it post-mortem they call it, or post-ante. But you are now having a more enhanced responsibility as you adopt artificial intelligence. Is there anything I did not address? All right, thank you very much. And I wish you all the best in your deliberations.
Thank you very much, sir. You did great justice to this, and we appreciate your time. People, so you remember that we had Mr. Sarumi, I'm sorry, Mr. Sarumi. Please don't. Okay, pictures. Okay. Please don't arrest me. It's just your name that I'm not pronouncing well. And I'm from the east part of the country, so please don't arrest me. So before we bring him back, can we quickly take some pictures, please? We'll take some pictures. Mr. Ogun. Yes, for pictures. Are we going to go outside? We can do it here. Is the light okay? Is the light okay? Okay, let's do it here. Please, can you help me with this? Take the stand out. Just a few minutes for our guys to take a picture. Ma, please join them. Please. Sir, please join them. Can we quickly do the pictures, please, so that we continue? Members, please come join. Let's take a photo session, please. Huh? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, okay, guys, please settle down. The meeting is not over. No, 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 no. We're taking the questions. So we should finish with that. Okay. All right. All right. Um. Okay. I don't know what's happening behind there. Please, can we settle down now? So members, please push. The link for this meeting is available on the WhatsApp group. So please push to other members of our team to join. I'll call on Mr. Sarumi now. Mr. Sarumi, please. Please, can we give him a round of applause? So, if you guys recall, there were things he was talking about, especially challenges they're having with banks. I noted a few of them. He spoke about bank accounts being opened by Mr. ABC and is being transacted, then Mr. XYZ is transacting. He also spoke about the poor KYC process that they've also noticed. And then one particular one that for me it's really disturbing is the non-responsiveness from banks when they ask for RFIs. I know that we also have more information, more questions and comments based on his presentation. So I would like to, open this up now for questions. People who have questions, comments? Anyone? Questions, comments for Mr. Sarumi? Okay, we'll start with Femi.
Okay. Thank you for very nice and detailed presentation. Yes, I recall this last week we were with CP, and part of the issues that he discussed with the association are some of the things that you rightly also mentioned. But my only ask is this: in terms of seeking for information from banks during investigation, of course we have a major concern, and the concern is the potential legal risk sometimes that follow when we release information, right? Because we've seen instances where banks are being taken to court by clients for availing information. We know it is our primary responsibility to, of course, provide information when it's been asked to do so. However, the legal aspect of it, how can we work together collaboratively with the agencies such that this risk is reduced, if not totally eliminated? So because you're not getting quick response sometimes, or the response are not coming, because these are part of the risk that sometimes the banks are looking at. When we release this information without the court order, if clients should go to court and, of course, take action against the bank, the risk is there for us as an institution. But of course, we also have responsibility to provide information to the agencies, especially where fraud is involved. So both the agencies and banks, how can we collaborate together and take out this risk? Or if not taking it out totally, at least reduce the risk on us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. Well, I think there was something I skipped when I was talking about that earlier. When I said we make requests to banks without court order, I'm sure I did mention that it is due to the nature of the speed at which monies are dissipated in contemporary fraud cases. So now we have to go to court to get an order of the court. But the information we have, maybe from the complainant, is that I woke up this morning and money has moved from my account. That's the information. If we had to go to court and the information we are taking to court is that, please, court, give us order to allow us to check this account. Bear in mind that, as I mentioned earlier, that might take minimum of 2 weeks to get such order. And upon getting that order, after serving it on bank, what we will now get is, this account you are talking about, money has left this account, though. It has now moved to this account. Therefore, we have to go back to court to tell the court to please give us order to check this other account. Meanwhile, before we get that order to, money may have also moved from there too. So the essence of that was why I mentioned cooperation, and I'm happy the ED mentioned collaboration. I hope that collaboration extends to law enforcement as well, because that is the area I was trying to talk about as well. When we write to you, bear in mind that the unit, being a responsible unit, understands that whatever information you give to us under that umbrella of collaboration is for us to work with. It's not for us to act upon to the point where the owners of such account or any other third party becomes aware that we've gotten this information from bank without a court order. That is out of it. It is to help to assist the unit in making steps that will save time and will yield results. So if you have given us such response, we have analyzed it, we've seen where monies have moved to, that can guide us on what we are requesting from the court. We can as well even inform the bank that, okay, the money we are tracing, we have now seen that is in this account. Please hold this account while we obtain court order. And then we'll now approach the court requesting for orders that would actually be effective in saving and holding the fraudulent funds, as against us walking blindly, going to court, getting orders that would not even be effective in combating the crime. So in terms of how it will reduce the legal risk on financial institutions, as far as I am concerned, as long as those responses are not used, are not acted upon to the point where third parties are involved, I don't see how it poses any risk on the financial institution. Besides, as I mentioned, even when we get such response and we see that that response is exactly what we need to act upon, we still go back to get that same court order and serve it on the bank, because whatever you give us without a court order, even the unit will not be able to present it in court, because we will need the bank to come and testify to that presentation, to that statement, and that requires us to have the authority to request for such order. So I believe that that addresses the question from Mr. Femi.
Okay, good morning, SP Sarami.
CSP.
Sorry, CSP Sarami.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have one or two comments, then I will present what I consider my concern. My name is Larry Kasim, GTB. In terms of the requests, when you make requests from us, what I can speak to, and I want to believe is the same with my colleagues, is that once we get your letter, we always PND that account almost immediately. At least freeze it till whenever we get, subsequent, information or requests from you as to, why you're investigating the case. Then, in terms of the risk, the legal risk that can arise, a lot of times when you give information out, it may be consciously or unconsciously, and I'm not necessarily speaking to SFU. When the letter is coming back, the information you gave is usually attached to that letter. You may not be aware. So even if I have given you that information without a court order, those documents and things will be stapled more often than not to what is coming back to me. So maybe also, if you ask me for information and you know that I gave you discreetly without a court order, it's also important that you're also discreet with the information. That's a comment. Then in terms of KYC, I have to be honest with you. KYC changes. and you will agree with me. The guy didn't set out to be fraudulent at the beginning. He opened maybe some of them, maybe not all. So you opened accounts for him, you did everything. You probably even visited his house. As at the time he's committing the crime, 2-3 months down the line, that address has ceased to exist. The job he claims he's doing has changed. A lot of things has changed. And I know that, yes, that is why the regulator says you must have a profile and you must check on your customer at every point in time. But you know what you then get is more often than not, when the police is investigating, they want to hold the bank responsible for, okay, so you have to produce this guy. Where he gave you a month ago or 2 weeks ago, I can assure you if you go to that same place, the guy is nowhere to be found, he's no longer there. So at times, locking up bank staff and all that, holding them responsible that, oh, because you didn't do a good KYC and you're unable to produce the customer, I think we would also appreciate it if, we look at these things because, okay, you get a police invite. You don't want to go because they're probably going to hold you down anyway for something you don't even know. So can we also look at this so that in the spirit of collaboration, we can truly, collaborate. At least look at the fact that I'm only doing my job, which is what I'm being paid to do. If something goes wrong, I also want it corrected, the same way you want it corrected. So why lock up the bank staff when I'm not directly involved in the theft or what has happened? I would even detain it. I think we should, look at it a bit. Then what we find out also is that when we bring cases to the police to help us to investigate, I'll be very honest with you, it takes a lifetime before anything concrete comes out of it. And this is the honest truth. If you notice, a lot of us probably prefer to take our cases to EFCC because we consider them faster. But even EFCC too, you take a case there, 1 year down the line, you have not recovered 1 naira. 1 naira. We're just going round and round in circle. We arrest this, arrest that, and nothing is coming out of. So it's a bit frustrating. So when we also even tell our management that we have these cases, we've taken it to the police, everybody just goes to, cool off that what is going to come out of it or when is something going to come out of it. So in this, I don't know what is causing the delay at your end. There may be something you also want us to do differently that can help with these recoveries because we are under pressure to recover. And recover means money, not just arresting everybody and nothing material or no money is coming out of it. So really, this is my own comment and would appreciate it if you can help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Lanre Kazim. You've raised a number of issues. I don't know if I should even start with the last one because of the comparison you made with EFCC. I would like to let you know, I would like to inform you, Ma, that I was in the EFCC. In fact, I was among the pioneer officers of EFCC in the Ibadan zonal office. I was one of those the foundation members of that zone. And I worked at the headquarters in Ibadan and in Lagos office here before I left the EFCC back to the police. And I can assure you, Ma, when you talk of speed, I think you will be making a mistake when you compare EFCC with the police. In fact, the most active case I have at hand right now is a case, in fact, not just one, 2, 3, just that I can't give details of these cases. Cases that I'm having, active cases right now, are cases that are currently, I'm not talking about a long time ago, currently with the EFCC. In fact, some of them, the EFCC is not aware that the complainants have come to SFU to report the same case. And I'm telling you as a matter of fact. So when you talk about speed, give that to SFU. You will observe that I'm mentioning SFU, not police, because I am here to represent SFU. And I know the challenges that maybe other police units may be facing, but I can only speak for SFU because that is where I am right now. And I know that under the leadership of CP Eloho, a lot has changed in terms of our functionality. So, in terms of that speed, I want to correct that. I think you can advise the appropriate quarters that if you want results, come to SFU. I'm not advertising, but I'm telling you that is how it is. However, you raised some other issues, so let me pick them the way, yes, from where you started. You said when you give us responses, and we know that these responses were given without a court order. Usually, when correspondence comes back to you, it comes with facts or details from the response you gave. I still believe it's communication between police and the bank. As long as third parties are not privy to this information, I have not seen, except if you are telling me now that we should refrain from doing that. Then I'll communicate that to the unit. But I don't believe up to this moment that there is anything wrong with that, because the information came from the bank, even though it came without a court order. So we can write back to you, point out some of the things we have, some of the useful information from the information you gave earlier, and still expect you to act on them. Maybe we're asking for further information. I don't believe that is wrong, except I don't understand that your question.
Now, I have given you the information, right? And the party involved, you are interrogating the person, which is the third party you are trying to investigate. And somebody is already instituting a lawsuit against me that I saw this with the police, or the police showed me this. My statement, my this, my that. Do you understand? I gave you in trust, and you're showing the guy. Yes, you are asking him questions, you are investigating him, but I haven't covered myself with a court order based on what I gave you. So I'm facing a lawsuit because I gave you that information.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that
Thank you.
part is what I said earlier by saying we do not do that. You see, when we ask questions, when we seek request for information from a financial institution and we know that it is not backed by a court order, that information is at best used by us as working information. We don't confront third parties with them. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not speaking for the police. I am speaking for SFU. We don't do that because we also understand that there could be litigations. So when we now need to act on that, we will go approach the courts, get orders of the courts, serve it on the bank, and that is when we can now exert as much authority as we want to, but we don't confront third parties with that kind of information. At best, if we have, okay, you know, when I said earlier, I said it is because of time that we do that most of the time. If we already have the suspect with us, we can as well take the suspect to court, to bank, to go and get his own statement of account, which is what we do most of the time. So I believe that addresses that, and it will also be part of my feedback to the unit in case there are some sections there that still does that. Now, in terms of the KYC question, you will observe that in my presentation, I made specific instances. These are not instances where I have opened my account. Let me use myself as an example. I have accounts with about 5 banks. But if you trace my address on, first of all the addresses on those 5 banks are different. That's the truth, because I opened them at different stages of my life. When I was doing my NYSC in Zamfara State, I opened an account. When I was in Police Academy in Wudil, Kano, I opened an account. When I was in LASU as a student, I opened an account, which is still active till today. So I have so many accounts. None of those addresses leads to where I am right now. But that is not the KYC issue I raised earlier. I'm talking about a situation where the name and details on an account has nothing entirely to do with the person operating the account to the knowledge of the bank. That is the part that I could not even fathom. To the knowledge of the bank, such that we even told the account of, we invited the account office. We've looked for this person. First of all, that account, one of the accounts I'm talking about here, does not even have a traceable address. But when we now got the account officer, did you even verify this account? She said yes. Okay, lead us to where? She led us to an address that belongs to someone else. Because when we got to that address, it's supposed to be an office address. We asked everyone in the complex, do you know this company? They said, this company does not exist here. Okay, who owns this office? The office was locked. Who owns it? They mentioned the name of the person and told us, of course, we saw his what do you call it? His signpost. It's different from this. And lo and behold, that is actually the man that was operating the account. Because we later got the man, and the man said, yes, I'm the one. So who is this person? He said, he's one of my boys that worked for me sometimes in the past. But he operates, and so that is the area I'm talking. It's like we are deliberately ignoring some of the safeguards that exist in the laws or the statutes that we use that is supposed to guide our job. And that part is very dangerous, because if we start on this part and continue on it, we will end up with accounts that are not traceable to known individuals. And once we allow that and normalize that, then we can as well just go back and rest, because we can't control what comes out of it. Like right now, this problem I'm talking about is very real, and it has affected a lot of people, including financial institutions. So that is the type I was talking about. I wasn't talking about a situation where at the time of opening the account, yes, the man was a bricklayer, but now he's now a plumber. No, I know that things change, status change, and all of that. Then you talked about police arresting account officers. I can assure you that for police to threaten to detain or actually detain an account officer, that person has been found culpable in more ways than just you did not verify this account. I say that because I have invited many account officers. As I told you earlier, I worked for many years in EFCC. Even then, I have never detained one account officer. Even then. And now, one of these cases, so many of the cases I handle, banks are somehow involved. Many of my cases. In fact, one of such cases, we are still extending invitation to a bank group MD right now on one of such cases, who has refused to show up or has sent representation many times. Why did we do that? Because the bank is culpable. But despite that, the bank has sent many people at different times, and none of them has been detained. The essence of detention is not to punish, especially for banks. We don't do that because we know that you are traceable. We know you. It's a different thing if, after inviting the account officer, we now saw that this person has done more things, other things, beyond just verifying as expected of you by the regulations or by the statutes. Beyond that, you might be detained. Or we have requested for some information, maybe even with court order. Let me give you some instances as well. Do you know, that there are times that we send letters to banks, and even with court order, that some of those banks will refuse to receive that letter? Yes. That we need to start calling people that we know in the bank before they now say, okay, they will now call somebody. In such instances, they end up calling people from their legal department, who will now have to review. These are request letters. Oh. It has happened to me many times. The letter has been going to the same place all our letters has been going. So, you see, the same way you feel that there are challenges at your own end, we have what we face too. And we actually need to find a way to resolve this for that collaboration to be effective. It's not enough to just have that collaboration. Because these days, financial institutions are actually on the receiving end of most of the kind of cases that I was trying to talk about earlier. Those cyber-based fraud. Financial institutions are being victims as well. So I think with that, I can assure you, ma, I've been in Force CID because I left EFCC in 2022 and I've been in Force CID since that 2022. And since that time till today, I think I only know of one instance, just one, where a bank compliance person, no, not compliance, customer service person was detained. One, and it happened very recently, and there was a reason for that. Beyond that, I don't know of any. So I can assure you that the collaboration that existed would be further strengthened, which I expect the same from the other end of the divide as well. And I think with that, I've addressed every issue raised by Madam. Okay, you have something to say.
Okay, thank you, CSP Sarumi. Yeah, in the line of the collaboration, I'm just thinking, is there a way we can improve the process? Because it's obvious that there is challenge in the system. Apart from the police, even for us as a bank, if we need to get court order or something from court, is a challenge with drugs. So, is there any way we can co-op the court system, the judiciary system, the law enforcement agency, the bank, so that we have an improved process, so that it will help us to contain this fraudster? Because the truth is that the cyber attack is on the high side and the bank is at the receiving end. Then lastly, on SFU, I don't know, is there any way, you just told us now that there is no constraint in line with resources, but I still feel there is need for your people to do better in area of logistic and tracing fraudster, because at times it's always become a helpless situation that we cannot trace this customer. We've been trying, we need to rent a machine to know the location. We need our movement is challenge. No, I think resources is still a challenge. And if we have that, how best can we collaborate together and get this thing done in a faster mode? We just want a better collaboration. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Saeed Ekeolere. I don't remember saying that we have enough resources. So, did I say that? I don't remember saying that. Well, if I had, I said we don't delay because that's part. So, well, to address the issue, you talked about how we can improve on collaboration, maybe even draft in the judiciary. I understand that there are some courts that are, yes, that are designated, or how will I say it now, for cases of fraud. And I believe we can still do better though, because actually most of the delays, and this also goes to answer one of the questions Madam Lanre Kazim asked earlier about delay. I believe conferences like this sometimes should also involve the judiciary. Yes, if we can, even if it's their administrative wing, but at least let them be represented. When they hear things like this, they will as well know areas where they can assist in fighting crime. And also, I don't know if you, sir, are on this platform, but I think it's okay. I don't understand now. We have a platform in SFU where we we created as a communication platform between SFU and the compliance officers of banks. Yes. So that's at least aid communication, smooth communication between us. We are all there. Anybody drops any message, we all see it, including the commissioner of police and all the team managers. So, well, I think that has addressed that maybe with the compliance officers. This now I'll take back to the office. Yes, that is why I said I'll take back to the office and let them know that we actually need to involve the CAEs as well. I believe that has addressed the two.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Sarumi, for this enlightening conversation. It was really good. Thanks for the insights, and we will call you again. And I hope you would be always willing to respond. Thank you very much. We're not doing so well with our time, and we will try to. We'll try to bridge that gap quickly. Okay, so apologies. You know, the last time I was trying to acknowledge our CBN reps, I was giving people surnames that are not theirs. Apologies for that. Mr. and Mrs. Ebele Obano, CBN Risk. Thank you, Ma, for being here. Ifoma Okonkwo, I hope this is Okonkwo. Ifoma Okonkwo, CBN Consumer Protection. Thank you very much for being with us. Please stand up, let's acknowledge you. Thank you, Mrs. Foma. We also have Amin, I hope it's Amina Halimat, CBN. Thank you very much, Ma, for being here. Okay, so let's get into the real reason for this session, which is the to really help us deep dive into the theme we have today. And we have Mrs. Chioma Obaro, from a partner from PwC with us. Apologies, Ma, for the slight delay. We welcome you. Please come over and let's appreciate how she comes.
Thank you very much. I will beg the indulgence of the dignitaries here present to permit me to stand on existing protocols. I know time is not our friend. Okay, I see some people stepping out. Do we wait a bit? Okay. Oh, okay. I believe time is not on our side, so I'll try to keep this very brief. My senior colleague, Mr. Gonwagodo, already pointed out some key salient aspects of what we need to do for our AI to make sure that we are keeping in tandem with the move that is happening within AI. AI era is upon us. Disregard it at your peril. There's nobody here that can say they have not experienced the effect, the impact of AI in one way or the other. Indeed, we've almost become used to it, right? You get something these days when I go to the hospital and the doctor is speaking to me, I'm putting the information on ChatGPT to check what the doctor is saying. And then if somebody tells me buy this drug, I put it there to check, is this drug really what it says it is? So it is upon us. And I'm especially glad that Acaebin is taking this serious, because at the end of the day, the internal audit function is the third line of defense. So where everything else fails, you have to stand there to safeguard the organization. And that is why conversations like this is very important. Is this working? Okay. Oh, okay. I don't think it's working. It should move from anywhere. Okay, I'll continue while hopefully they sort that out. It's one of the things with technology, and that is actually what we're discussing. So we can't avoid it. Technology is upon us, and these things happen. So I'll be looking at three key areas today. The first is the AI risk taxonomy for banks. So what does the risk landscape look like in this AI era? I would also look at the AI audit framework, looking at the audit universe under AI. What are we even talking about within this AI audit universe? And then we would look at how AI changes the audit mandate. So what are some of the changes that we've seen in our audit mandate with the onset or the ongoing impact of AI? As an introduction, one of the regulators, I'm very happy to see them here indeed, when they introduced the regulators from CBN, from NDIC, I said, yes, now we're talking. Because we cannot be having a conversation as germane as this in terms of how we should be auditing AI in our organizations without the regulator being present. So AI has changed not just the business of banking, not just how banks serve customers, how they detect fraud, how we approach and manage and mitigate those fraud risks, but also changing how we as the internal audit function work in line with and in keeping with the AI trends. So in recent times, even the regulators themselves are also, re-engineering how they go about regulating the banking business. As you all are aware, there's been, as by 30th March this year, 2026, there was a new guideline around deployment of cybersecurity self-assessment tool. Next day, 31st March, there was the implementation of baseline standards for automated AML, CFT, and CPF solutions. These are increasing ways that the regulator is using to keep the banking sector relevant in keeping with the times. Because technology really drives the way banking activities is done now. You can't escape it. And so regulators are also re-engineering how they regulate these banks and how they make sure that the banks are future-proof as AI evolves and continues evolving. In Nigeria, the adoption has been quite phenomenal. You all agree with me. There's no tier one bank right now. In fact, there's no bank, I dare say, that is not using AI tools, AI models in one way or the other. It has come to stay, and banks have embraced it, continue to embrace it, and will keep embracing it. So I know that 100% of our tier one banks have brought in AI into their, either as a chat box or as a way to even automate loans. So these days you log into your mobile app and you're able to access an instant loan. A loan process that usually would take days, weeks, you can get it in minutes. That is the power of AI that looks at your behavioral patterns and believe that given how you have behaved on this platform over time, you've qualified yourself for this loan. So those advancements then subject themselves to our work, our audits. how do we make sure that for our organizations, we are not exposing them to the risks, the threats, cyber attacks that come with these advancements in technology? And so looking at the risks within, thank you. Yes. Looking at the risks within AI itself, I've tried to narrow it down to 8 key risks. There could be more. The first one is the governance risk, which, like the keynote speaker, Ugo, said, because AI is really driven by technology and by algorithms that we cannot see and touch, it makes governance all the more crucial for us to pay attention to it. And so governance as a risk is a major key risk and key focus areas for AI adoption. So unclear governance, unclear ownership of AI tools, weak oversight, poor accountability, these are all part of what makes this risk existential for the internal audit function. And then we look at data risk, poor quality data that is not bounded by the confines of our organization. And so if the data that you're feeding into your AI model doesn't get bounded to your organization, it lends itself to hallucinations, right? Because that data is able to go outside the organization and get behavioral patterns, bring it back to your organization, and you use it to interpret for your judgments. Meanwhile, those behaviors are not, they don't fit your profile as the business because they don't relate to you and they don't relate to your customers. So knowing that data risk and understanding it and being able to contain it becomes very key in AI era. And then we look at model risk. Model errors, model drift, inaccurate outputs, weak validation. So many things can go wrong when we're looking at the model. Take model drift, for instance. You will agree with me that if you had assessed the risk in your business, say your oil and gas portfolio, a month before US-Iran war, that entire assessment becomes inaccurate a month later with the US-Iran war. Because one tiny strip of water, Strait of Hormuz, has caused such tremendous significant impact and shift in your model that if you were not continuously reviewing, updating, and reanalyzing your model, you would be subject to inaccurate and unfair data for the organization. And so model drift becomes very important because the risks that you are now monitoring within the internal audit function can no longer be static. Gone are the days in our traditional auditing when we come up with the audit plan, and then the audit plan is approved the year before, and then it becomes the audit plan for the entire year. We can't continue like that anymore. Our audit plan has become a dynamic tool. It is something that would need to be changing constantly. In an AI era, it becomes even more significant. Because things like behavioral change or economic change can change your model assumptions from 1 week to the next. So if you've done your model risk, you've done all the assumptions, you're happy with it, you think it's fair, you've reviewed it, you've issued your opinion, hey, the very next month, all that work becomes meaningless because behavioral patterns have shifted and perhaps new data have now been added to the existing data that you analyzed. So model risk is very, very crucial for internal audit function in this AI era. We then have compliance risk, discrimination, exclusion, unfair outcomes. Indeed, the European Commission on AI guidelines provided that there are certain types of AI that cannot be used in banks. You can't apply AIs, for instance, that discriminate on the basis of gender. You can't apply AI that discriminate on the basis of say, psychological or mental alertness of people. You need to protect your users. You need to protect the end users, the customer. And so as you're looking at your company's AI policy, the question you should be asking is, how does this AI policy fit into the business risk of my organization? Is it confined within the risk appetite of my company? Or can anybody wake up one day and decide that, hey, I think this generation Alpha is a good generation to target, and I want to look at all the females that are in generation Alpha because there's a product I need to send out to them, and suddenly there's an AI model that is being pushed out to target that. At that point, you need to step in to ask yourself, how does this align with the risk appetite of your organization? And that begs the first question. Do you have a clearly defined AI governance policy, AI governance strategy, and AI governance risk appetite, risk framework that defines what the entire bank does when it comes to AI use? Cybersecurity risk, I think that has been stressed. Third-party risk, very important. Particularly now that banks share a lot of space with other users. Gone are the days where banks, tools, your storage system are all on-premise. Now they are on cloud, which means that you're sharing that space, you're sharing your information almost with other users. And the only way to protect that information and make sure that it is limited and restricted to you is to pay attention to your third party. Because the way those third party use that information is not within your control. I was doing an audit for a client, of course I won't mention who, and it turns out that the vendor had information that was accessible to other users that the company was not aware of. And up till, in fact, they kept pushing back and arguing and insisting that this was not possible, up till when we was almost like, okay, so let's follow the point from this to this, this to this. This is now open to this user. This user, I can tell you, is not from this bank. How is the user getting access to that information? And so third-party risk becomes a very key part of what you need to pay attention to and what you need to audit as well. So in designing your audit process, in designing your audit strategy, have you included auditing third-party systems as part of that strategy? And then operational risk. This cannot be overemphasized. Operational risk, by the way, includes our human capital risk. Because really, you can't give what you don't have. So for you to have a strong AI audit system and a strong AI audit process, you need to equip your teams to be AI savvy. How many of us have designed training programs for our AI team that really focus on technology and AI? Do we have any member of our AI team that is a certified ISACA holder, for instance, that have AAIA certification with ISACA? And do we have members of our team that are technology savvy? Now, a lot of people think that, oh, it's easy. I'll call an external consultant to come and audit it. Don't get me wrong, we love the job. But, you know, there's a thing we say in the firm. If an external person is performing work for you and you do not have the competence and the capability to review the work done by that external person, it's garbage in, garbage out, because whatever the person gives you, you cannot question it. And so you can't take away the need for your staff to be upskilled and to really understand what AI and tech means to the business and to be able to review and question it when it happens. So I've also put together some ways to mitigate this highly summarized. I have a more detailed presentation that I can share later. So responsible AI is the way to go. Responsible AI is what will reduce these risks, mitigate them, minimize them, and especially build trust for us and for our clients, and also for our board, the people that we're reporting to. So looking at privacy and security, looking at robust governance and compliance, fairness and bias mitigation, continuous monitoring and model management, which I've spoken to, transparency and explainability. I'll speak more on the explainability in the forthcoming sessions. And then stakeholder engagement and accountability. These are all important in ensuring that there is proper audit of our AI system. What I've included here is as I go into the AI audit framework is a guideline by the Institute of Internal Auditors, where they have clearly identified what we believe is the structure that AI governance should take in organizations. So you have the governance at the top, where you have your AI strategy, the board oversight, the ethical values. And on this, there's the pushback that really, given how important AI is to organizations, especially to banks, shouldn't there be a dedicated board AI committee? That's a question that we should be asking the board. Or if we believe that the organization is not mature enough to have a dedicated committee for AI, should we then clearly expand the functions of an existing committee and make sure that AI risk is a fundamental part of their board mandate? So this is something that we need to really look into and review as well, to be sure that, because without governance, it makes our job harder as internal auditors. And then ethical values. Your use of AI must be within the ethos of your organization. That means that there has to be an intersection of the organizational culture and AI usage. You can't use AI in isolation. Nobody should be able to wake up in a bank and put in place a model, no matter how good or how fanciful that model is. An assessment must be done on how that model ethically combines or integrates with what the organization stands for. If your organization is a green organization, for instance, that focuses on green banking, then your models should be linked to that green banking and not just be, oh, this looks good, let's build it. So ESG becomes a focus for you as you adopt AI. The second layer is then the management, which is the first and second lines. And I'm sure I see that Ms. Tugo has already talked extensively about this. The third layer is the internal audit, which is where we fit in. And in fitting in here, we're looking at ourselves with two lenses. One, as in an advisory role, and secondly, in an assurance role. So in an advisory role, I get the argument that internal auditors should really stand apart from management so that they can independently oversee what management is doing. But you must also be able to offer relevant advice to management, relevant advice to the board. Because really, you have information that a lot of people in the organization do not have because of your wider perspective of the market. I have a client that I worked with that every quarter they have meetings with us, with their auditors, every quarter. And in those meetings, they make it a point of duty for the auditor to come and speak on an emerging risk and an emerging issue that is important to the bank. And so that kind of combined assurance where the internal auditor is working closely hand in hand with the external auditor helps the internal auditors better support the strategic direction of management. I know for a fact that after one of those meetings, I got called by the board chairman who said, I heard about this issue. Let's discuss it some more. That means that they are seeing value from what the internal auditor is doing as a result of them being able to integrate with their external auditors and really get insight into what is happening around the world and how it affects the bank. So let's go to the IA audit universe. Again, like I said, this has been summarized just for this presentation. The detailed presentation can be shared with the body after. So what should be in the IA audit universe? I'll just pick a few. The IA strategy and governance framework. I've talked about this. I can't emphasize it enough. AI inventory and use case register. So as the internal auditor, the CAE, for instance, you need to know all the AI inventory, all the use cases across the entire bank. It is your job to know, regardless of where it sits, regardless of who is implementing, who is pushing it. Your job is to know everything and to understand the process and the governance that they've gone through before they go live. Notice that I say before they go live, because sometimes internal auditors are only brought in after the system has gone live, at which time you're only then doing damage control, which shouldn't be. So it is time to bring internal audit in the room as these systems are being developed, so that before they go live, things that could go wrong is identified by the internal auditors and corrected before they go wrong. I've talked about data governance, quality management, model lifecycle controls, very important, AI change management and deployment controls. These are all the things that as internal audit function we need to put in place. Monitoring, performance tracking, incident management. Like I said, our monitoring has to be continuous going forward. If we are still operating using static risk framework or static monitoring processes, then we are leaving ourselves open or vulnerable to risks. Third-party AI solutions and contracts, very important, I've spoken to that. Staff usage of public generative AI tools. This is people don't understand how important this is, because our staff are free, they are playing around with these AI tools, and invariably they expose the organization to risks. So the question is, does the organization have strict policies around staff generative AI use? And if they don't, it's time to start looking into that and putting it in place. We're not saying restrict staff from being able to, build AI agents and all that, but anything they are doing where they are using information, company proprietary information to do that too, it's no longer theirs, it's no longer personal. It becomes a management tool, and management must have oversight of it. I say this because even in my own organization about a year ago or so, when all this just started picking momentum, we had a lot of people develop tools that can review FS, tools that can do this and that, and people were just playing around. And at some point, when the policies were embedded, the question is, you can't do that. It's not your tool. So long as you're using company information to build any tool, it must be subject to our company process, which is quite rigorous and goes through a lot of loops before you can push anything out. And so organizations must imbibe that as well and make sure that staff are not just running on their own and playing around with these things, exposing you to data protection issues. And then in terms of the internal audit principles for AI audits, we've listed a few. There could be more. There has to be approved governance for AI tools, clear policy on permitted and prohibited systems. You need to define high-risk AI systems, and also make sure that there are specific transparency obligations, data classification rules before uploading any content, documentation standards for AI-assisted analysis, testing and validation of all prompts, templates, tools, validation of model assumptions and scenarios. This model assumptions is another important one, because a model is only as good as the input and the assumptions you put into it. And so apart from making sure that the data is clean, it's also important to make sure that the assumptions that go into that model are validated. Human review and sign-off of AI-generated outputs. To talk about this, I would go to the next slide. In terms of human review, it's important that we approach AI as another decision maker in the room. AI is no longer AI is not a tool. AI is not this is a computer. Oh, it's AI. No. AI is a decision maker. So with AI, what we are auditing is not the processes per se. What we are auditing are the decisions and the judgments that AI has made. And so if you're unable to question those decisions and judgments, you expose yourself to risk. And I'll give an example. If AI is 100% accurate, it should worry you more as a CAE, right? Because that 100% accuracy then lends itself to false security. Because then you have your staff saying that, oh, this system has always produced accurate results, it's okay, and they sign it off. But if AI is not 100% accurate, you are forced to review it and to be sure that the outputs make sense each and every single time. And it's funny because in my class, I'm doing some studies. We did a class on AI in the academia. And it was funny. There were like over 50 published articles. And these are articles published in Scopus 1. So Scopus is like the highest rating for authors. And so Q1, so quality 1 Scopus rated articles. Articles published there still included AI prompts, AI measures that were not properly cleaned before they were copied and pasted in the article. And by the way, these articles went through editorial review and went through 2 peer reviews before they were published. And so you have published article that somewhere in the middle you will have review and delete this. So if it does not align with what you're looking for, and it's there and it's published. And so the threat is real. And that's because people believe, oh, it's generated by AI, it must be correct. And so that rigor that you would typically pay to read every line and make sure that it makes sense is no longer there. Because AI has done it. I mean, what can I add as a human? There lies the risk with AI. And that is why, as CAEs, we must be alive to this existential threat when we're using AI. I would skip this in the interest of time and just go to this slide, where we've sort of listed some of the things that we believe CAEs can take away from this session. Oh, okay. So let me go to key takeaways. The first thing I want to talk about is for us to understand that. So I've just highlighted just 5 key takeaways. The first one is that auditors are no longer auditing only processes. We are now auditing decisions. So with AI, the process may be flawless, and yet the decision is wrong. Okay. Thank you. You know, I'm an auditor. Timing is very important to us. So already I have my timer on, and I'm saying, okay, I don't want to keep my CAEs longer than necessary. So thank you for that. So traditionally, we do tend to ask ourselves the question, has the control operated effectively throughout the period? But now we must ask another question. Can the machine's judgment be trusted? Secondly, the biggest risk we face as auditors may very well be AI systems that perform too well. So historically, we worry about systems failing, but now we must also worry about AI systems succeeding. Because they are succeeding so convincingly that nobody questions the judgments made by the system. It becomes so bad that human review becomes a rubber stamp because the machine cannot be wrong. So we run the risk of replacing professional skepticism with algorithmic trust. Replacing professional skepticism that we were all taught as one of the key foundations in our accounting training. It's now replaced with algorithmic trust. So now we trust the algorithm. We don't question it. One of the toughest governance challenges is not governance over who built the AI model, but rather it is who is accountable when AI gets it wrong. Is it the model developer? Is it the vendor? Is it the IT person? Is it risk management? Is it the CAE? Is it the board? Who actually is to be blamed when AI fails? So it is, many organizations are yet to clearly define this responsibility and accountability metrics. And the decision is not as easy as it looks, believe me, because the system people will tell you, the system is okay, there's nothing wrong with the system. If it fails, it cannot be the system. It is you that is using it that was not able to use it the way the system has been designed for you to use it. So it's a serious question that we must be asking ourselves. Now, AI creates dynamic risks, and so controls around these risks must be tested periodically, and they can no longer be static. So an AI model that was fair and accurate in January may become biased and inaccurate by February. I mean, I gave the example of the Strait of Hormuz, and even COVID. As recent or as old as that is, COVID opened our eyes to what could really threaten our lifestyle and threaten our businesses. And that's a risk no one could have envisioned and no one could have planned for. So imagine if you had a risk plan in 2019 that's been approved by the board, and that's what you're using in 2020. It's out of the window. So as a highly regulated sector that the banks are, the other thing I need us to also pay attention to is what I call AI model explainability. It's actually more important than the AI model accuracy itself. Why? Let's assume that you have two systems. One model gives you 95% accuracy, but cannot take you through a step-by-step explanation of how it arrived at its judgment. The other model gives you 90% accuracy, but you can explain to your regulator every single step of how a decision was arrived at. Which model would you prefer? Exactly. So model explainability becomes more critical in this AI era than model accuracy. And so when we are bringing in vendors that are coming to deploy different models, you must ask them that question. How can I explain the judgment and the decisions that this model produces for me at the end of the day? If that model explainability is missing, no matter how accurate that model is, please continue to question it until that explainability can be explained. Otherwise, accuracy without explainability just ends up landing you in more trouble, particularly with the regulators. And lastly, AI is ultimately a human risk. So the most damaging failures are often human failures, e.g. poor governance, inadequate oversight, excessive reliance on automation, inadequate challenge of model outputs. So most AI failures occur not because machines misbehave really, because they are machines. Machines, no matter how advanced these things get, AI, robotics, everything, it is still humans that have to manipulate it. And so the human error becomes very critical in how well we are able to navigate this AI era. So the threat is real and all the more critical for internal auditors. And then I'll end on this note. AI is not merely another technology to audit. It is a new decision maker that is sitting with us on our tables, in our boardroom. As that new decision maker is entering the organization, we as auditors must determine whether we can trust this decision maker that has joined our organization. Because AI is the one pushing out judgments and decisions for us. So they have a seat on the table. Do we trust them with these decisions they are making? Or do we take a step back to really question the information that AI is pushing out to us? I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chioma. Thank you. We really, really appreciate it. In fact, you took a topic that somewhat could be boring, but you made it so exciting. I followed the conversation all through. It was so interesting. Guys, we have time to have a conversation, to have comments, to have questions. I'll start with a quick comments and a question, right? So I work for Standard Chartered. So we've started deploying AI tools already, even in audits. Typically, for every audit you need to have, we do in Standard Chartered, at least 50% of your tests you have to deploy AI experience. And for some of us, we may not want to be data scientists because it may be too late in the day for us. But what certification do you think we would need and that we need to begin to train our people in that can give us that leverage to have a good understanding of how the algorithm used in developing those tools, have a good understanding of how the algorithm used in developing those tools work? Of course, apart from using the tools itself, which is a must for all of us, what kind of certification do you think we can get to help us understand that? Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Do you want to call the question?
Yes, please.
We have time. So you're not confused. Okay, you want to write? Okay, good. All right. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Barrow. My own question, in the AI audit universe, this issue of staff usage of public generative AI tools is a source of concern, practically, because if you look at it, you talk of data leakage and privacy violations. Practically, how do you prevent staff from using publicly generative AI tools? That's in terms of loading company data into it. How do you prevent that? Besides moral suasion, how do we compel or how do we put measures in place to deter staff from doing that? Because honestly, it's happening. Yeah. So practically, how can we prevent that? Yes.
I think it's similar to what I wanted to ask. I have a case in the office. They always complain to me that a certain individual even go to the extent of uploading the bank's SOP on ChatGPT in the name of reviewing. Is that right? It's something that I think needs to be taken up. Yeah, thanks.
Says, whatever I'm doing anywhere I am. Right. So these are some of the risks that, yes, that is the question. How did we get here right? So a lot of risk also coming with this, and we should be front-footed in addressing some of these risks, especially from where we sit. So what are the things that we can do differently in addition to just upscaling? As we're upscaling, we have people behind that we thought, oh, they are not our risk, but a lot of things are coming up, and we see that they have upscale and they're also testing the system. Thank you.
More. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Reports through AI and you give back to AI to read for you. So it's embarrassing. And so we have a product where someone has generated into this without, like someone just mentioned about uploading reports into this without, like someone just mentioned about uploading reports into ChatGPT. Yeah, maybe the Copilot may be better, but what do you suggest? Copilot is owned by Microsoft, and my question is, where do we start? Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Very interesting topic, and I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed everything you said. I just have a few concerns. For the model risk, I'm asking myself that with adequate stress testing, you give a scenario about the oil and gas sections and all of that. Yes, you have a model, you fed it with a lot of parameters, and this is the result you're getting today. Then all of a sudden, Iran, US, and all that started. Do you think if there had been adequate stress testing, where you have considered the worst case scenario that, okay, you wake up tomorrow, you can't move oil around, you can't do anything, you cannot earn a dime. That's industry, cannot produce, cannot do. Do you think with adequate stress testing, we could have been able to mitigate some of the risk that are throwing out, or the impact of what we're seeing? That's one. Then two, third-party risk, honestly, is a major thing, and it is major, and particularly API risk. Because how can you effectively mitigate third-party risk? The expectation is that you are supposed to audit the third party. But the way things are nowadays, everybody is logging onto that API. So how many people want to audit the API holder? I mean, I've read it somewhere where they said, okay, maybe all of us should come together and employ the likes of you, the firms, to do the audits, and we'll all share the report. But how effective is that really? And truly, is that the way forward? Because the truth is, this is a risk we face. A lot of the applications we use, some of them are off the shelf. Even this AI is off the shelf, and we said audit the AI, ensure it's doing what you expect it to do. How much can you deep dive into an off-the-shelf application that will truly satisfy you that you have reviewed the scripts or whatever it's going to throw out? Because today, the vendors are out there. They don't know what you're using it for. A lot of these applications, their documentations are even hosted on the internet, to the extent that these fraudsters will just pick the documentation and know how to navigate that application. So how do we bridge the gap and handle this type of risk? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed the presentation. So just a couple of questions. The first one is you said something about the need for internal audit to review before the deployment of the solutions, AI solutions, and the rest. So, and the question that came to my mind was an earlier question that was asked by Nike when the ED presented, and that was where we have internal control. How do we now, reconcile the two roles? Because traditionally, in most institutions, we would have expected internal control to do that. But there's sense in what you spoke about. So given that, because somebody say, you want to come and take my job, or there's conflict in the roles and all that. So how do we, knowing the advantage of how of the advantage of this activity, how do we navigate? How do we manage it? Then the second question is, you said something that's of great interest to me, and which is, as external auditors, you provide service. Well, let me not use the word service. You provide information on a quarterly basis on emerging threats. Okay, so is it part of the package? Is it on an extra fee? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Part of the audit. Okay, thank you so much. And I think I got all of the questions, so I'll start from the very first one on certification that is necessary for AI and tech. I don't know if I can get the publication that was given to me when I came in, because I've had the chance to read it while I was sitting, and it is actually quite informative. And I think every CAE should take this back to and by the way, well done to the editorial team. Very, very strong publication. I've read all the articles that you have here. There's one that specifically spoke to the kind of qualifications and the certifications that we should be looking at in order to enable us audit these tech and AI systems. And so I don't want to reinvent the wheel. We're very good at that. So I want to just point you to that page. Yes. I think it is. It talks about the AAIA certificate done by ISACA. It talks about the order. I see that some people are just opening theirs now. It's no, it's not really a FICO. It is just trying to understand the body, and I was quite pleasantly satisfied with what I saw. So if you just the first one, artificial intelligence on page 4, it does talk about the kind of certifications that that organizations need, and even your staff need as well. So there's the ISO IEC 27001 assessment that need to be done. So every auditor is required to do that and to ensure that they are compliant. There's also the COVID 2019, Governance and Management of Enterprise IT, that all auditors, because COVID 2019 does encourage evaluation of IA controls and encourages accountability. And so all auditors are meant to. Yes, I'm there. And then there's also the ISACA reference that I made earlier, where your staff needs to be certified on that. That's on page 6. So, I mean, for IT auditors, every certification you need have already been spelled out here for you. So I can't even add anything else to it. So I think if we are able to look through this publication and bring it back to our organization, it would really be instrumental to helping us upskill our staff. The other one, of course, is training. By all means. So if I take my organization, PwC, for example, almost on a quarterly basis, our teams are trained globally on AI because we know that organizations would need specific AI knowledge and specific AI skills. And so, by all means, do engage the professional service firm to come and train your staff, and not just the internal audit staff, to actually come and even train the board. Because we keep talking about governance at the board level. If the board do not know what to look for, then what can they govern? So you must also train your board audit committee. You must train the board that is charged with AI governance, so that when management comes with these models, they would know the right questions to ask them. Staff usage of AI generative, of generative AI. The easiest way to start with that immediately is to update your code of conduct. How many of us here have updated our code of conduct since AI era to include specific AI code of conduct requirements? Just a few hands. So that means we have work to do. So it starts with updating your code of conduct as an organization, and update it with specific section on AI code of conduct. And as soon as that is done, send it out to all staff. It must be certified by all staff that they have read and they understand it. So that is the first, the first step to address that staff usage. Get that code of conduct signed, attested to by all staff. And then there is something that we use in my firm that has proven to be quite effective at reinforcing knowledge. For a lot of us, we give our staff laptops, and they have workspaces, desktops that they use. I don't even think people use desktop anymore. They have workspaces that they use. It's important that on those desktops, on those workspaces, there are regular messaging being pushed out to staff. Indeed, in my firm, you can't work on your system for 1 hour without whatever you're working on must be interrupted, and a prompt will flash up, prompting you on something that you must be aware of. And before you can't close it, you must read and then accept, and then it closes itself and you go back to your document. So that with that, there is constant reinforcement of these messages to staff and the things they need to do. If it's important, and I believe it is, particularly for banks, that staff do not upload bank proprietary information on any AI tool, on ChatGPT, on Instagram, anywhere, create a prompt, use an avatar. Are you about to upload anything to social media? Stop. It is against our policy. And it prompts up. Anytime they log on, that's the first thing they see. As they are working on their laptops, the prompts are showing. That way you're reinforcing the messaging that you're sending out to your staff. And then, just to mention something on this ChatGPT upload, I was doing a research for my program, and I asked ChatGPT, because my thesis is on sustainable finance. So I asked ChatGPT to give me data on the banks, on different banks in Nigeria, and their sustainable finance, what they've done, anything about sustainability. I was quite shocked at the level of confidential type information that ChatGPT pushed out to me. You know, people don't understand the impact that proper prompting can do. If you prompt properly, you can get a lot of information. And so it becomes all the more important, the kind of information that your staff is uploading to these channels. Because that's the information they take and they modify, they add to other things, and they push out to the next user. And so once your information gets out there on these AI tools, it's difficult to contain it. And you don't know what type of information your staff has put out there. So it's very important that we are constantly reinforcing the confidentiality of this type of information and also data protection so that our staff is aware of the kind of risks that they stand to face should this be linked to them. Uploading critical documents on social media. I think I've addressed that. Even though you can upskill the staff all you want, without proper grounding, without enabling them to see the risks and the possible consequences of their actions, they will not do what you want them to do. And so positive reinforcement for me, it will be the best way to go, to just make sure that staff know the repercussions of pushing this information out there. Self-review threat. Yes, that's what I called it. AI-generated reports, and then the person that generated it pushes it back for AI to review. That's the definition of self-review threat right there. So how does the organization bring in AI controls and processes? Where do you start? So, I mean, all this is not saying that AI is not a powerful repository of knowledge. It is. We can't take that away. We're just saying use AI responsibly. So to develop your policies, procedures, and all, start with AI. AI already has a lot of policies that people have researched on it, and it has built up on it. You can actually use a proper prompt to download a reasonable starting point for you to then take and build on what your AI control policies and processes would be. So let's use AI, but let's just use it responsibly and understand that, like my colleague from StanChat said, that information must be subject to review. So AI should be, it should be like having data that really makes no sense until you take that data and you work on it and it turns into information that is useful for your organization. And Lanreden asked about model risk. Stress testing, how does that address the model risk? Could it mitigate the risk? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if the organization is strong enough to really perform deep stress testing. And I say this because I have audited organizations where we even insist, in fact, before FX went haywire a couple of years ago, the year before, I had told my client that we need to stress test their currency, their FX risk, and stress test it by about 25 to 30%. And they said impossible. There's no way exchange rate can go from 430 to above 500 in 1 year. This is 1 year. By next year, you come and look at our account. What are you stress testing? And guess what? In that 1 year, exchange rate went from 430 to over 1,500. There's no amount of stress test that I couldn't even have stress tested by 300%. I mean, I would be crazy to put that forward. But even the 30% small stress test, the client pushed back and said it's impossible. You can't do more than 5%. Check historical trend. So it's yes and no. Stress testing, if you're really able to be strong and to push back, and you've done some horizon scanning, and you can really get some information on what is happening or where the world is trending to. You know, geopolitical risk and all that. But not to the extent that sometimes things just happen. And there is no amount of stress testing that you can use to forecast what might go wrong. What we do advise, though, is that scenario analysis instead be done. And so while stress testing need to be reported in your financial reporting, FRM, in your FS, scenario analysis doesn't. So scenario analysis can be done by management where you're really looking for scenarios, outlandish scenarios. So scenario where FX becomes 5,000 naira to $1. We are sitting here and we're saying impossible. Who knows what will happen next year or in 2 years? We hope not. But I mean, can you stress test your organization to that level and really ask yourself, what if this happens? Scenario analysis where you're saying that your entire oil and gas portfolio loan becomes wiped out because the oil and gas customers are unable to pay. And by the way, it has happened. It has happened when FX went haywire and our FMCG customers that took dollar loan and had naira businesses couldn't meet up. It has happened when oil went bottom up and our oil and gas upstream couldn't service their loans. So it does happen. So I believe scenario analysis is one way that we can really put our financials to that type of deep stress testing that really gives management, okay, if this happens, worst case, how do we fare and where do we come out on the other side of it? Then she also talked about third-party risk, which is really API risk, I agree. How can third-party risk be mitigated? So what we've seen happen is that the API holder needs to be audited. If your API provider, if that person, if that vendor does not go through a robust audit process, then you'll have a risk. Now, the result of that audit will be issued to your auditor in what we call a Type 2 report. So you have the API holder perform that audit, and then your auditor or your external consultant can then come and audit the API. By the way, when the external consultant goes to audit the API, we are not going to get access to their data to audit. They can't give it to us because that data does not belong to you alone. All they will give us is the result of their own audits, because their own auditor would have signed all the independence and conflict of interest declarations in order to be able to assess the data of all the companies that they are hosting and really be able to perform the audits. It is the report of that auditor that we review when we go to review the third party. And of course, we do some other tests, but really high level. Have you done this? You do inquiry, you do interviews. Inquiries and interviews are fine, but the key issue lies with the data audit itself, which is why they need to have done that external audit themselves, which they can share with your external service provider. Off-the-shelf applications, how much can we review the script? This has remained a key aspect of uncertainty for us, even as auditors. And I'll give an example. I did an audit a couple of years ago where we had an issue with the model, with the credit risk model. And by the time we brought in our auditors, audit experts to really come and break that model down. So this particular bank is using an off-the-shelf type model for their credit IFRS 9 assessment. By the time as we broke it down and we assessed it, it turns out that there was a logic that was hard-coded in the model. And what that meant is no matter what changes, that logic does not change because it was a hard-coded number. And so if your auditor did not have the capability to perform that depth, that level of audit, and you simply relied on, oh, it's off the shelf, they've given me, they've shown me their scripts, so if their scripts, I review their script, if their scripts are okay, it means what the off-the-shelf tool is producing must be okay. Then you're gonna get shocked. Because sometimes even the developers might not remember that there is something that was hard-coded. So being able to audit that tool becomes very important. Now, for me, it's very simple. For significant risk areas, particularly things like loans and credit, you can't use off-the-shelf system. You can't. You need to deploy your own system that you can explain. Remember, explainability. It's not about how accurate it is about how you can explain it. And that explainability can be the difference between you publishing accurate and fair numbers and you having inaccurate and biased numbers. Now, there are some other types of processes where you can use off-the-shelf system to track and monitor. Those should be more low-risk areas. But I believe high-risk areas that are germane to the banks, germane to, say, insurance companies, like their life business, you should be able to really develop and deploy a system that helps you explain what is happening within the model itself. And then the last question was around IA review before deployment. How do we reconcile internal control with internal audit? I mentioned this during my presentation, combined assurance. If you're still running a separate internal control function, separate from the internal audit function, separate from the risk management function, there is no meeting point between all this, then you're not evolving with the future. Combined assurance is the way to go. In more developed countries, and I've audited in UK, way back then, combined assurance is a no-brainer. You must have it. If your regulator is coming, when they are talking to the internal auditor, the head of internal control is in the room. The head of risk is in the room. Because all of you are combining to guarantee the assurance of that organization. If your internal control is off on one tangent at assessing controls, internal audit is on one tangent reviewing, auditing those controls, where is the meeting point where they come together to discuss and review the risks in the business and the end-to-end assurance over those risks? In doing that, I also extended it further to your external auditors. And the service I talked about was part of the audit. External auditors should be able to have meetings with the internal audit. Indeed, I recall in Wesleyan Bank, UK, our audit, external audit then, was done with the internal audit team. They formed part of the external auditors because that was a way to increase the efficiency of the audit process. So rather than have auditors send 25 people, 10 will be from the internal audit team. And they work with you in your external audit room to audit the organization. The only thing there is all decision taken on the work they've done must be signed off by the external auditors. And so there has to be a way to bring together your external auditor and your internal auditor in one room, even if it's quarterly. Let them have quarterly discussions. Let them discuss emerging risk, what is happening, where do you see the risk of this organization going. And indeed, the board audit committee, in the example I gave, actually demanded for it. And so at every private one-on-one interaction between the external auditor and the BAC, they would always ask, Did you hold meeting with the internal auditor? What did you discuss? Tell us how do you see their function in the organization? So hopefully that would help to further imbibe combined assurance. I'm not saying step on each other's stuff. I'm just saying find a way to do combined assurance so that there is synergy in the way assurance is being done within the organization. I think that has addressed all the questions.
Sorry, and I apologize sincerely for taking you back when we should be wrapping up. I just want you to explain what exactly combined assurance is, because I hear it all the time and it sounds very overrated in terms of the terminology. Now we're talking about different units. You have the risk, you have the audit, you have all that. So when you say combined assurance, are we all putting one report together, or am I assuming or expecting that risk has taken care of this aspect? So I would only take care of that aspect. Because you know, all the time you hear it even from the board, combined report, combined assurance, and you're wondering what exactly is the expectation? Are you looking for a report that will show input from all of us, or what exactly is it? Thank you.
The AI. Oh, not a question per se. Okay, so yes, thanks. So thanks, Chairman, for the detailed presentation. So my take on the AI is that I think for us as auditors, our work is number one, for us to understand how to even leverage AI to drive efficiency in our work, and number two, to be able to provide assurance on what the bank is doing with AI. And for us, you know, for co-pilots, we have an approved co-pilots that we are to use in-house. And that co-pilot is different from the one I have on my personal device. That co-pilot, there are do's and don'ts to it. And for that one, I can upload reports. I can use it to review policies. I can use it to audit or to do anything. But I must not do such on any personal, you know. So for us, what we need to begin to question, if our organizations, our banks have not been doing it, is to begin to ask, what are we doing? Number one, you start with the AI risk management framework. So it's for us to begin to question and understand that the model and all of those things, they are still, because we need to understand the models for us to be able to say we want to audit. I don't know how to audit the model, but again, we can start from learning what are they doing, what are the input, what's the risk management framework, and for us to start by even challenging and testing the controls or testing that framework if we already have it in place. But gradually, with regular learning and giving more attention to the learning for our team members, we can be able to do something. Thank you.
Just address the question that she raised. I'm so sorry. We would have to stop here so that we can move forward. Okay, please, apologies.
Okay, thanks for that, Nike. And to address Lanre's question, so combined assurance does not mean that the different aspects, the different teams that provide assurance no longer do their independent work. So there's still the expectation is that the risk, the operational risk team and all that does their work, the internal control team do their work, the internal audit team do their work. Those silos are still there, and the work should not be merged because they are addressing different aspects of the business. That said, there has to be a meeting point. Because if I use a particular key risk, for instance, internal audit cannot come and audit key risk that internal control have not designated as key. So if internal control, for instance, believes that this risk is not a key risk, and so the controls around it, I don't need to test it robustly, for instance, from a controls perspective, right? If internal audit comes in and that risk is a key risk within the internal audit mandate, They are going to be at opposite ends with the internal control team. And so there must be a handshake between risk, control, assurance. And that's what we mean by combined assurance. And how does this handshake happen? There has to be a standard meeting agenda every month in the diaries of these teams that provide assurance, where we come to look at risk that is facing the organization, agree as a team on what the high risk areas are, what the low risk areas are, areas of emerging risk, right? So that the internal control goes back to focus on what to test based on that jointly agreed plan. And then internal audit can then do their audit, knowing that internal controls have already tested these controls that I am coming to audit. And so combined assurance is really not a thing per se. It's just a discussion and meeting point where all those providing assurance to the entity come together to harmonize their approach for assurance.
Thank you. One more. Last, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Just back to, you responded to my question, to my issue. And one of the things you said, you talked about attestation, code of conduct. Okay. That still did not satisfy my concern. But I just want us to accept that risk that there is no way we can stop staff from accessing publicly generated AI tools. For me, you understand, because I've discussed this with management, is for us to accept that risk, because there is no auto-deterrent against staff using public generated AI tools. Because like Nick said, I can decide to use my own Copilot privately in my PC and upload company documents into it, and it leaks into the public. So how do we trace that? I want us to accept that risk, which I've told my management and board. We'll do our best in terms of moral. You see all those ones we talked about, they are moral suasion. But in terms of compulsion and deterrent, auto-deterrent, it's good for us to accept that risk and look for ways around it. So
thank you.
Yes, I think that's this thing. I want us to accept that.
Thank you. Now let me tell you why I cannot accept that. Let me tell you why.
Accept the risk. I'm not saying to accept the practice. Accept the risk.
Okay, so the risk exists. Definitely not. The risk exists. There's no doubt about it. Now, this is where I sort of differ a little. The same demographic of staff you have in your organization is not different from PwC. It's the same people. It's the same Gen Zs. Why are Gen Zs in PwC behaving any differently from Gen Zs in your organization? It's all about enforcement. Because the Gen Zs in PwC know that we are auditors. Confidential client information can never find its way outside our organization. And if you do that, you're automatically fired. It's not as in, it is one of those things where it's not a disciplinary action. It is an immediate dismissal. Because imagine I'm auditing, say, Lanre's books, and then Lanre opens social media and sees confidential information that she has given me on social media. It's not the staff that posted it that she would blame. It is PwC. Yes, even if we trace it to staff, the staff is not to be blamed. The organization, GTB, is not going to be blaming the staff. GTB is going to be blaming PwC. And it's going to be asking PwC what kind of data protection and confidentiality measures have we put in place to ensure that this sort of event should have never happened. Chioma, accept that bullying is a risk and accept that bullying would happen in our organization. I will tell you, no, I would not accept that. Because bullying, there's zero tolerance for it in my organization. And so if that is enforceable elsewhere, it is to find ways to also enforce it in your organization, given how sensitive your information is. And so it should be clear to staff as they are signing that code of conduct that if any leakage is traced to you, there is an immediate dismissal that must happen. Then they know. And the minute you discipline one person and the person is dismissed, everybody knows that it is no longer business as usual.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. It's been so informative. Quick photo session at the back. Yes, just with the ESCO members. So, guys, at this point, we would go for lunch. Yes, it's it's time for lunch. Please would ask you to go. Lunch is served behind the doors, and also know that there are washrooms also.
See her bag. See her bag. She just went to. They won't want you to. They want to be flexible. Discussion of general insight from the regulators.
So that when they finish, from there.
Please go and take your picture first. Go and take your picture. Come back. Chioma, do you want to do it here? You guys want to do it here or outside?
You don't want to hear. What's wrong with this?
Let's just get it for lunch.
But when she comes, you can ask her.
Then maybe after lunch we'll talk now.
She can. What's stopping her from talking during lunch? She can talk during lunch.
She can talk during lunch. Here. Okay, let me ask Nisha. Let her come. Let me ask her.
Well done. Thank you. Where's Chioma?
person. And they will keep on sending message. You are qualified for 5 million. Send me. You don't need to send me message. You just make mistake. You just credit me. You don't know say you are qualified. We cannot impose the loan on you. Just credit me first. You don't be sending me. So there's no credit.
Wahala.
Yeah.
All